Sometimes clients ask me, how often should we conduct an accessibility audit? And my fastest recommendation is every 6 months or twice a year. And keep in mind that we've got the accessibility audit itself, which, depending on which provider you go through, can take 2 to 3 weeks, possibly even more. So we've not only got the audit, but then your team needs to fix the issues, and then you very likely want those fixes validated to make sure that you've actually resolved the issues. So that process can easily take a few months. And so for that reason, I think every 6 months is an aggressive pace. It's very brisk. It also definitely demonstrates a commitment to accessibility. But that's a very quick pace, and that would be my fastest recommended interval. Now, for 3 months, this is the quickest pace that I think is still feasible. But just remember that process that we need to go through. With 3 months, sometimes I see this come into play with clients that are that need to comply with the settlement terms that have resulted from a website accessibility lawsuit, and so the plaintiff's lawyers will put in there 3 months. But that is too aggressive. That is hyper aggressive and absolutely not necessary. And remember, when it comes to audit, we want to extract all of the value from the audit, so that the way we extract all of the value is that we actually work through and fix all of the issues. So we just need time to do that. And if we're auditing every 3 months, then even if we fixed all of the issues, we don't need to have an audit conducted right away after we've just fixed all of those issues and optimally validated. So 3 months is too quick of an interval in most cases, but it occasionally comes up. We can make it feasible, but I would say 6 months at the fastest. Now, the industry standard is every year, and I think that's a perfectly fine pace, especially given just how long it can take teams to complete remediation. We've had clients where remediation has taken over a year. And so part of the reason that remediation can be so drawn out is if one, there are so many accessibility issues in the initial audit, but then two, if the audit isn't being prioritized and the team is pulled in multiple different directions. So that can be why audits takes or remediation takes so long. But I think annually is a very nice pace. You can have an audit conducted every year, and that is perfectly acceptable. It's a good pace. It gives your team ample time to remediate or fix the issues and then start all over on the next year. And then with the next year, maybe some changes have been made to the digital assets. So we want to include those in that next audit. And then another option is every 2 years. And this can also be fine depending on your circumstance. So let's say your digital asset remains mostly static. So if that's the case, if there hasn't been many changes or any changes at all, then every 2 years works just fine. So if your asset is completely static, so let's say you're an accessible.org client, and you're a professional. Let's say you're an attorney yourself, and you've got a website. You have made zero changes to the website. Then there's no need to have an audit conducted after that, because you've already made your website. Optimally, you'll have made it WCAG conformant. You'll have validated that the issues have been resolved. So if that's the case and no changes have been made, then no follow-up audit is needed unless you want one for some reason or another. And then I have the next bullet point is when significant changes are made. So if you have made significant changes to your digital asset, then at that point, it is good to have an audit, regardless of at what interval this would be, just because significant changes have been made and it's very easy to introduce new accessibility issues. So let's say there's been a redesign. Let's say that there has been a content overhaul. Let's say you have added new interactive elements, changed the interactive elements that were already in place, added third-party integrations, etc. At that point, then an audit is it could be called for. And then the next bullet point I have is optional, but you can also approach audits in in it with a phased approach. So let's say that you audit in layers. So let's just take the example of a website. The website has 25 potential pages that are within scope. We can go ahead and divide that audit into two, and then have the first phase where we're going to audit. And let's say we take 4 months for that. And then we start the next audit after 4 months. And so here we're taking a layered phase, a layered approach, and we're auditing in phases. So phase one is going to be 10 pages, and then let's say phase two is 15 pages. And this way, the initial audit isn't as overwhelming. So what can happen if you have a very expansive scope, then you could easily get back 150, more than 150 issues, and so that can be overwhelming for teams to work through, and it can be discouraging. So you may want to have a layered approach where you audit the pages and screens that you put as a priority, and then have the secondary audit conducted. And then at that, with this layered approach, then it might be every 3 months might make more sense. So this is how often to get an accessibility audit. One other consideration is, let's say that you take a phased approach when it comes to the technical standards. So let's say you start with WCAG 2.1 AA, and then you eventually want to get to 2.2 AA. So in this case, maybe it is every 6 months, maybe it is once, or you start with an audit, and then after 8 months has passed, then you conduct the new audit where it's WCAG 2.2 AA. And you can even take a combination of these different bullet points. So let's say you take the phased approach with this technical standard, and you also have significant changes being made. So the audit really just flows in and fits in nicely with the timing, and you take a very much strategic approach to it. So how often to get an accessibility audit? My default answer would be once a year, but it's really going to depend on your situation. So this is just one video in with this is just one video of several where we are looking at the frequently asked questions that we get from clients about accessibility audits. I will include the playlist to the full list of videos in the description for this video, along with other resources to help you with your accessibility project. So that will do it for this video. We will continue on with the next.